live.
Hey, it's March 14th, 2012. We're at the Revenue Enhancement Committee meeting. People who are present, Monica Hamill.
Mike Wolf. Connor Kurtz.
Dr. Otto, administration, and it is 6:10 p.m.
All right, did everyone get the email that I sent out last night regarding the foundations? Because tonight we're going to kind of look just on the foundations and look at what we've been presented so far by Bob New and Bob Potter. And then
also we have this proposal from Foundation Innovation.
Mm-hmm.
Now I haven't met with, and they're from out of state, so all I have is what's on paper. I haven't really had a follow-up phone call with them yet, but they're very similar in that they're just kind of a national organization. They do pretty much the same thing that I think Bob New would wind up doing. So we just don't have a price quote from them, but they did put together a nice proposal. They have a lot of it's out of Texas, but a lot of what they have here is the same kind of process that we'd have to go through with no matter who. And I think the issue is, and I think we can use your email as a springboard for that, is no matter how we get this started, there are a couple things that I think are critical to the whole process. One of them is that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's already a foundation in place. It's got its IRS approval. It's a standing 401c3. So we don't have to go through that rigmarole to get the foundation in place, which is, I think if you look at this proposal, it actually talks about starting a foundation.
Mm-hmm.
We're past that. As bad as it is, we're already past the critical stage. What the problem with ours is we just don't have any leadership and direction on what is the current existing foundation. And we've been saying that for 2 years now. The second thing is that we've got, they have a financial crisis, the existing foundation, i.e. they're broke. They don't have a dime. They might have a couple residual dollars left in their account. They, through some, what I would consider poor planning, if you want to call it that, spent the money on a feasibility study for a capital campaign, thinking that the foundation was going to be the stadium foundation. And then when the board decided to fund that project, the foundation talk just totally lost its steam. And then it puttered and spitted and tried to, get ahead of steam to do some other things. But to be honest with you, a foundation doesn't work when it doesn't have a source of income. I mean, they don't need a lot of money, but they need operating money, to do things and to get things going. And you need somebody dedicated to running it. And I think the individual who was running it had their heart in it, but they were doing it for free. And obviously, a job like this, if you're going to do it right, requires, as I think Bob News, you need about somebody that's going to dedicate 20 hours a week to it, just solely dedicated. That's their part-time job. They're probably retired, have a good pension or have an income or don't need the money or a second income or whatever it is. They're not relying on this income, but they're the type of individual that's also not going to give you 20 hours for nothing. Mm-hmm. So that's really that's the starting point that you need for funding. So I don't think it's all a bad picture, but what has been the big stumbling block has been finding the who. Mm-hmm. I mean, we just have not been able to get that part done. And as a result, the board that I think was surrounding the person that was trying to run the foundation, they were committed, but they got turned off, and now they've all disappeared, and you'd have to resurrect everybody now. We had a board. We had all that stuff in place. We had officers. They had a solicitor. They had money. They were getting bank statements. They didn't have any leadership direction.
Well,
So
that's
a
kind of
summary.
where I was thinking when I wrote this letter.
So that's what I wanted to say. If you want to take off with that letter
with
now.
the letter, y'all have it. Just trying to figure out the other night, where the foundation, after listening to Mr. Potter talk, where does our foundation fit in, from Bob New to Bob Potter, and then reading about other foundations that are in our general community.
Did you finally get my answer?
Yes, I
Okay,
did look it up,
okay.
yeah. So, and which I agree, we can't compare ourselves to some of those foundations that I found, but we can aspire to be like that.
Absolutely.
And that was what I was saying. We have to look ahead of what we could do and not just focus on what we're not doing currently. So what I was thinking during the process was the Birdsboro Women's Foundation, or Birdsboro Women's Group, I happen to know some of the people on that, and that's why I started thinking and listening to what they do and how they set up things. That's kind of like the who's we need. People who can get something running and get it going and get it established. So when I was talking just in vague terms, I did not come down and say, this is what we're going to do. This is, I just was asking in vague terms, what do you guys do? What do you think is important? Their concern was they don't want to raise money for the school. And I said, well, you wouldn't be raising money for the school because the foundation is not part of the school. So that's, where this was coming from was talking to people and then starting to think of other people in the community that might want to help us. If we have to invest or loan or do whatever to start it up, I thought it would be better maybe to keep it within the community rather than going outside of the community, and basically start kind of regrouping with people in our community to support the school. The first thing my neighbor said was, I'm not going to give the school any money, I pay high taxes. And I said, but we're not going to target, we're going to go off the alumni base, people who've graduated from Daniel Boone. We're going to go out to companies like Bob New was going to do. We want to have them outreach for money. We don't want them taxing our tax dollar payer, our community anymore.
And I think if you find you will find people that will want to give money. They might not give a lot, but you'll get enough to get a foundation started, and it'll just have to grow then.
Right. So I'm thinking from not restarting the wheel. We have a foundation. Either I was just thinking, can we at least somehow reinvent who's in the foundation?
Well, they even have bylaws. You know what?
Right.
Maybe what I ought to do for you is just so you understand. I should have thought ahead. I didn't think we'd really need it for tonight, and we probably don't. But they have a set of bylaws.
Right.
Yeah, I'm on the website. I was looking for the bylaws.
Right.
Because if
they have all that.
They are a
have it all.
separate organization.
Absolutely.
We have no control over what they do.
The only
Exactly.
connection we have is one board member is a representative, and the superintendent sits on their board as, I think my officer is a non-voting member on that board as well. I can't really, they just want me as a liaison to feed them information. Well, we need this. We're looking at this. Can you do that?
Is the board representative a voting position?
On their committee? I don't think so. I think they're both just that large.
Okay.
I'd have to check their.
I'm on the website now, and I'm looking at the board of trustees. So it would really only be the president who votes, and then the two members of the board. So it's a three-person.
Right, but see, what you do then, what they were trying to do was then to get. I don't even think we figured out how to, whether we were going to pay. They were going to make their own members pay dues, or how they were going to do it. We never got to that point.
Yeah, so, which category is that under again? I forget.
It is on under parents.
Under parents.
Parents. Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, see, we gave them a presence on our website for nothing.
Pretty nice website.
Well, they actually
Yeah, that's
did.
why I didn't think we should have to reinvent everything. We
You
have
don't.
a
Well, see,
website.
we did start to do some things.
Right.
And then it just faltered.
But the one thing that I noticed with other websites when I was going to them, they did have a PayPal button named donation. And it would go right into you. I almost gave them money.
Right.
Because I was like, wow, I might give them $1 or $2 just to see how it works.
Right.
To see if I give them $1 on my credit card, do they send me back a thank you note? I
Right.
mean, but I don't see why we couldn't put a PayPal button on this current website because it's so
Well,
I can do it.
The one thing that we suffered from as part of the foundation, and I can tell you, I sat in my first 2 years here. I mean, we would have a foundation meeting. I think it used to be on a Wednesday night because it used to conflict with one of these meetings. And we would sit there and do nothing. And it just got to the point where it was frustrating and
Right, well,
people would stop showing. And then we reached out to people like Gail Clifford, who's like a stalwart in the community. You remember Mrs. Clifford? Did you ever have her? Maybe she's before your time.
I believe. Yeah, I know she's involved in the community a lot because I've seen her name pop up.
We had,
on the website.
What's her name on the community buzz? Stephanie
Right.
Conlon was here. I mean, she's like,
right.
I mean, she's a well-known, person around the community in terms of trying to drum up support for different things. She came to a couple meetings and she
I know,
got
but
turned off by it.
When you look at the amount of people we need to run this, if we stay with the current Board of Trustees, you really don't need a whole lot of people. You just need a lot of people that want to do some work.
You need volunteers. And they will volunteer when they know it's a viable organization.
Right. And the president, depending on if they're going to give their time, I think somehow there should be some form of reimbursement on their time. If it's 20 hours a week, whether it's set up somehow, if their bylaws say that they're allowed to get some type of reimbursement, that we should look for that. That would be an incentive to get someone who would want to do it for 20 hours a week. Reason why I put on the letter I sent was they're going to need a phone. They're going to need, if they don't want to do it all out of their house.
We can help them with that.
It was just a matter of having a place for them to sit up with a phone and a copier to minimize some of their overhead costs.
And just, I did want to let you know, Bob New did email me the other day. Twin Valley has retained him to do exactly what we're trying to do. Mm-hmm. But I don't, and I think I know Twin Valley is because when I was there they had a foundation, but it must have fallen by the wayside as well. So even places that have had them for a while, if you don't have somebody running them, now Why Missings is very successful because they have somebody that they've had in place for years. They have an executive director, and that person runs it.
I mean, I think Bob has given us some great information on how to do it. It's just, do we want to pay Bob? Do we want to pay Bob Porter? Like, I don't know if...
I think Bob Potter is more valuable after a foundation is started, and then that they reach out to him and use him to get done what they need.
Right. His thing seems to be alumni. Potter seems to... New seems to be earned income tax credit.
Right.
And...
He's more of the funding source guy. What I liked about him was he's a coach.
Yes.
And he was the one positive thing that I got out of his presentation is that he has benchmarks. He's going to be coaching that person. And if that person isn't meeting his expectations, they're gone.
Right. That's what I like too about him.
Not just simply you're running them. You see your fund balance going down, and all of a sudden we're back to where we are right now. Where nothing in the bank, no progress, and taxpayer money has been spent and wasted.
Right. And that's the part I really liked about Bob New was that coaching aspect. But then we still have to come up with the board, and we still,
I like that Bob New's local, too. Phoenixville is 10 minutes down the road.
Right, Phoenixville
well, not 10
far.
minutes, but it's not very far, and he would be... And I like the guy. I mean, he's a little brusque, but I think...
Prickly is a...
Yeah, but I think you need a little bit of that to get...
Well,
you got to move people.
That's from his previous life, from a sales manager. That's the personality you're going to get. You're going to get a Class A personality, Type A, whatever.
And the way we've been like a Class C, D, E, or F, we've been like just sitting there doing nothing. So we need somebody to jump start.
I just want to figure out where to go from here, because if we want to reuse our foundation, that we need to make a difficult decision on how to address Joe Peterson. I mean, how do we address
Bob
him?
New has said that he would take care of that for us. He would just sit him down, have a meeting with him and say, and I believe him, I think he'd call Joe in the room and say, you know what, this isn't working.
But at what cost? What cost do we have to pay? Do we have to pay
I don't
him
know
up front? Because his costs started, when we did the interview twice, his costs were anywhere from his loan, just to start out, was $20,000.
Well, the loan is for the executive director, not for him.
But he also had a fee.
But his fee, we'd have to just pay.
That was like
That's not a loan. That's just right out of our pocket.
Well,
the loan would be a business deal with the foundation, not with Bob New.
Yeah, I want to say that
but when you
was
start,
like $4,000 or $5,000.
Right.
What his fee.
He's going to need a retainer to get started.
And do we have even that to get started?
Well, we have it. It's just becoming. It will become a debate. As soon as you throw that out there, I think you're going to have members of the public saying, well, why are you spending that on this? Now, anytime you take money to try to call it an investment, you're always going to get resistance as to whether that investment is valuable or not. You're never going to avoid that debate. So you either have to decide you're going to have the debate and let the will of the board decide, or you're going to have to say, no, we're not interested in the debate, we're going to shut this down. Because until we do this, we're going to keep spinning my opinion now, we're going to keep spinning our wheels the same way we have.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't think we can afford to go forward not having one. There's just too much money out there, and there's local money that's available.
I would agree
Not
with that.
happening.
I just don't want to come across as we're trying to spend money at a time now when we
Yeah.
don't have it.
Right.
Sometimes there's our expenditures like we did with the Microsoft thing. You just got to make them.
Well, that's why what I wrote, it was trying to figure out ways to minimize our cost and reuse our own community to help support what we're trying to do. So that's, I mean, in you going to the women's group was to start tapping into people that might be interested in helping with the volunteer work as that needs to get done. If there's someone on that board, that would be a candidate to be the executive director.
I have no
To
doubt
be-
that there's a good executive director out there that will run our foundation that can probably be a local person. I think there is a lot of pride in the Daniel Boone corporate name. This has been an institution that has been in place since 1966, incorporated, and then people that have been here before 66. It's like, well, I think all the schools in Berks County have a certain amount of pride in their school district, and Daniel Boone's no exception. So I don't see the. I mean, if Pottstown can raise the money they raised, Daniel Boone can raise some money. We just got to get somebody to get it done.
Okay.
I don't
So-
have any doubt. It might go slow. It might start out slow, but
I think it'll be important to tell the community when we're bringing this forward, this is what you will get, this is what the community will get for our investment.
Right.
This is what we will receive. I think the earned income tax credit alone, if we can get Mr. New to give us an estimate, we're going to get this in the first year. I think if we can have numbers, if we can have facts, go back to the community and say, we're going to give Mr. New $5,000, we're going to give a loan to the community for $20,000, the foundation for $20,000, and this is what we'll get in return.
I think we
we'll
have
a
to
much better time
do something.
working with them.
See, and the individual was at the board meeting on Monday. You can tell that they didn't get it. It wasn't ever explained to them. So this is the first time that she heard it, and they're
Who's that?
I don't remember.
One of the
whether-
moms.
One of the mothers that came up, and she was just adamantly opposed to, why are you going to spend our tax money on this? But we're not spending the money. We're trying to.
It's an investment.
You're trying to take something, put some seed money out there and grow it. So, if we can build $50,000 or whatever the amount of money is, you've paid back the initial investment, and now that could be whiteboards, it could be books.
Well, you know
it's
what?
free. It's
Maybe
helping
we could talk to
educate.
Bob New and say, can we back charge the foundation once they're up and running for his fee? I mean, that's a possibility. Say, look, you know what? We'll give you 5 years to pay back his fee as well.
I thought that was asked.
No, I think the question
Because
that
Walt was asking a lot of very direct questions about
Well, we could ask that
how
one again.
can we pay you along the way as we get money in? Are we able to pay you? And he
No, I
said
think you're going to have to pay him up front. I don't think anybody's going to sit around and wait for their money in installments. No professional is going to do that. But I think the question that I'm asking is, we have a bill. We have evidence that we wind up going on a retainer for $10,000. Can we work out an arrangement with the foundation to say, you know what, in addition to the loan that we're asking you to pay back, for you to pay your executive director, we're going to back bill you for the seed money that we put out there to hire Bob New to get this started. So we get all of our money back.
Well, that would be the ultimate goal. Would
But
be to
you
get
might,
all of our
but
money
that
back.
might, if you don't say that and make it explicit, it might not happen. We might wind up just spending $10,000.
Well, what he was saying before is that we
I
would
think
have
that might
to
make it
do-
more acceptable to the rest of the board as well, to know that all of this money is a loan. It's all going to get paid back. So we would have to ask Bob if that's a possibility, that you can back charge the Ed Foundation for that money.
Okay, because the way I understood it the night he was here was we write that executive director a check on a regular basis to keep them working because that's what they're there for. They're not going to work for free.
But the way they would get paid is through the money that we loan, not our money. They get paid through the loan.
Yeah.
That's what he meant.
Right, through that initial.
In other words,
Through the initial 20,
20,000.
but that's why if we watch the 20 go down, 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 and nothing comes back, then we've just put out $20,000.
Well,
That's what.
To what I was saying before. Maybe by the time we get to 12, and Bob knew that person's gone. They're just not getting the results, or whatever that amount. He said, and I asked him specifically, do you have goals and milestones and metrics by which you're going to measure this person?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think we need to have somebody who's done this, has the best chance of success.
I think he's a very smart and shrewd man. I would trust him with getting this done. I can't say it's 100% locked. Nothing's 100% locked, but I'll tell you what, he impressed me. We can certainly check his references.
I look past the messenger to the message.
Exactly.
And it seems, obviously he has a lot of track record of doing these local districts. So there's a lot of local contacts and a lot of local knowledge. And quite frankly, Mr. Potter, not that he wouldn't be capable, he just doesn't have access to that.
Well, his focus seemed to be completely different.
They work together. They know each other, Mr. New and Mr. Potter.
It's one is kind of, you start with Mr. Potter and it sounds like you would continue on with Mr. New. Mm-hmm. Well, I think we're kind of the point where we're past most of what Mr. Potter could offer.
No, actually, I would look at that as the reverse. You would get Mr. New to get the foundation started. And
then Mr. Potter would help with the database.
Right. One of the goals that I think the foundation has to do long term is turn over the alumni database. The foundation needs to run that.
Right.
That's how foundations exist. I
used the wrong word.
No, right.
Bob Potter.
You just had it mixed up.
Yeah, I got it.
So I think that long term, Bob Potter might be able to help us. We've tried our best to get an alumni database started, but we're not experts in that. He can do that. And then let the foundation pay him. The foundation's responsible for paying Bob Potter, not the school district.
I think the first thing we need to focus on is getting the executive director in place to do all this stuff.
Right. That's.
Well, we have to have someone talk to the current president
and in order to do that,
find out how.
Joe Peterson, he's a full-time realtor. That's what
he's always been a full-time realtor.
Right. I met him.
Joe's a good guy. This is really not about personality.
No.
I've been.
And he bleeds Daniel Boone blue.
Yep.
He believes in Boone. And I just want to go on record saying that, for the benefit of the audio tape here, it's really not about him per se. It's about having someone in that position that can take it in a new direction. It just has a certain reputation now that has gone stale.
Well, I think what we need,
right, but it's gone stale. The Community Foundation now looks stale.
Oh, absolutely.
The website hasn't been updated in 2 years.
That's indicative of where we are
on anything. So what my thing is, do we go ahead and bring it to the board that we want Bob New to go ahead and pursue Joe Peterson in asking him to step.
You got to work out a financial arrangement first. You have to. Bob New's not going to work for free anymore. We're going to have to. You're going to have to debate with the board this whole issue of how much money do we want to loan to the foundation, because the foundation does exist.
So what do people feel comfortable with?
I don't.
Loaning so far.
I would say.
Do you have any idea?
I would say before we do that, we should have another sit down, and I can do that administratively with Bob New.
Okay.
Say, look, Bob, this is the direction that the committee would like to go. I can call him tomorrow. We can start having this conversation. Say, look, if you're estimating what to get a director. Okay, we need to loan that. That's first year's. I think we need to loan them all the first year seed money that they need. The loan should be to cover the executive director and Bob New's costs. I really do think we shouldn't be paying Bob New. It should be money that gets loaned to the foundation, that it all gets paid back. Like he said, it's a business deal. This isn't a handshake. It's a contract, and we hold them to it. Now, I don't know how we would sue them if we wouldn't, so we have to realize that there is a certain percentage of chance that we could lose every dime we loan. I mean, if they don't make any money, we don't have any right to get anything back. And you don't want to, you want to put them on I guess like a car loan. You want to put them on a 3-year, 4-year payback so that they have the chance to have a differential between their debt and what they make so that they can start to reinvest some of their own money. Because if you ask for the money back too fast, every penny they bring in is coming right back to us. Therefore, they're 2-3 years away from making any profit. So we would have to structure a loan, and I'm not a financial expert, but you can't ask them to pay the $10,000 back in 2 months.
Right.
They're not going to have that money.
Now, did that just flash. I just
Yeah, that's funny.
I clicked that button. I was wondering what would happen.
Well, the light went on here and got my attention.
Found out.
But, well, it's not broadcasting anywhere. But I think that would be my recommendation. And we can talk to Bob. He's done this with other places. So let's see what
I know,
they're doing.
but I'm looking at, we have to bring this to the full board.
Oh, you absolutely
And
do.
the full board needs to understand what exactly we're looking for, because I felt the consensus before was, no, we're not going to go forward with this. It costs too much money. We don't have the money. So what new approach are we going to present this time?
I would say that you say to the board, look, we've got a fund balance, loan them the money out of the fund balance or our reserves or whatever we have, and when it comes back in, that's where it goes. It's a set-aside business deal. And it's not going to cause it's not going to cause you to have to raise taxes. It's not going to cause you to have to take any more money from the public. You're taking some of your own capital, which is your fund balance, your reserve, and you're taking a minute portion of it. I mean, I would imagine we could get away with somewhere, I don't even want to quote a figure, but I can't imagine you need anywhere much more than $50,000 to get started, to give Bob New the money that he's required for his time, and then enough to pay the executive director.
Now, before we make a loan to the foundation, are we going to have a new board in place?
Well, that's what I'm
I
saying.
think
We
those
have
are all of the logistics that we have to work out before we even enter into the contract.
Okay.
Right. I mean, we have to know that we can reestablish the old.
I would not recommend making a loan until they have a
Yeah.
newly established board.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think,
Or at least an executive director in place.
Well, I think Joe needs to make sure that that
Steps
it's
aside.
understood, steps aside, so there isn't conflict right away with the new executive
Yeah.
director and the president.
Right.
I mean, that needs to be clean cut
Right.
before they bring new
Right.
people in.
Because the president is not the executive director.
I know that, but
yeah.
I'm
No,
just
but I
saying,
see where you're
he's-
going, yeah.
He's in the
He's kind of like the executive director now
right.
as well.
It's just a different terminology, but his position seems to be the same.
Right. Well, I think it might be good for us to have another meeting with Bob New, if we, even before we go back to the board, and get some of these questions answered. You know, how is this actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9? What are the 10 steps that are going to get us to get to the board to agree to this?
Now, I think, should we set a timeline? Well, because we keep talking about this and it doesn't really seem to move forward. I mean, we have more questions.
Well, I would say
No,
this
we
to
need a
you. I would
timeline.
say by next month, we should be deciding whether or not we want to move forward with this at the April Committee of the Whole. I wouldn't bring it up at a board meeting under old business or new business where you vote.
Yeah.
But at the April Committee of the Whole, we have plenty of time to get all of our questions answered. We've talked this to death. There's nothing new to talk about or show.
But,
I
to make sure that the public knows that we're going to be discussing this, so the folks that had questions about it are, they're going to be able to be here, they could come up and ask questions, because they haven't been involved. Obviously, the people that were questioning it knew nothing about how it worked, what its purpose was, other than we're just spending money.
Well,
So
I think
And the problem with that is we have to then figure out how much money we're really spending,
Right.
because we've already said we're going to spend something, and now if it
I think
ends
if
up
you
being
presented that-
50,000,
I think
that's,
it would be a good
that's
idea to have a town hall style meeting with this committee. The public can come in, they can ask us questions about, and have Mr. New here. They can ask questions, where the money will be going, why this is a good investment, and we can explain it to them. And then they'll have the opportunity to ask or have the opportunity to respond. I think that might be something we'd be interested in doing, maybe an hour at the end of the month, or
Right, because of the sensitivity, I just want to
Yeah.
make that extra effort,
yeah.
to make sure that, they haven't been involved. And now some of these people heard this term for the first time, and it was, totally objectionable, but I don't think we can.
Well, I think in fairness to the situation, that you can't recreate 2 years of talking about this in one
I know.
meeting. You can inform them the best you can, but to try to rehash all of this for them is just going to confuse them more. To know where we've been and what we've struggled with, and a few people that have paid attention. I mean, I know you've been to some of the meetings long before you even decided to run for the board, probably just as a citizen. You've been one of the few people sitting in the audience, so you have a deeper understanding. I think, obviously, Andrew has been through it because he ran revenue enhancement. Frank's been through it. So there are some people on the board that get it. I don't know how much we're going to be able to do with the public for them to get it. I think we just have to take a leap of faith at some point and say,
No,
you know
that's
what,
true.
you have to trust us.
I
We've
understand.
been through this.
Yeah.
So here we go. I mean, we're not, I think the loan is the safe fiscal way to do it. I think that was, when Bob New said that, I was like, wow, that's a stroke of genius. And it really is, because I don't think the board, we are separate. We shouldn't be spending money. It's a loan. I don't think it's beyond, nobody else is going to loan them the money. That's just not going to happen. So we're about the only viable source to invest in, what they're doing. So, and it's not illegal for us to loan that money. We could get Subers to write up a contract. We could put it all down on paper and say, this is what we expect. This is when payments are going to start back, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it becomes like Bob New said. He stood right here and said, it's a business deal. It's nothing else but a business deal. So I trust that he said that because he's done it before. So we can, maybe we shouldn't invite him tonight, but I think I can handle him by talking to him. You guys don't need to do that. I know the questions to ask, and we'll get them answered.
I'd like to know, how do you advertise so people can, submit their resume or whatever it is they would submit to show interest that they would like to be the executive director or even be on the board in some capacity?
I would send out, maybe Mrs. Conlon has a blog that's widely read, maybe ESM.
What's that website? Community news?
Community Buzz.
Community Buzz.
Right.
Well, I think we can, we have all these booster groups. I know that if we get this, there's certain things have to happen on the leadership of the board before anybody's going to come forward again. And that's just the truth.
Well, if you can talk to Bob New and find out the actual nuts and bolts of what the cost will be so that we can represent it to the board with a more structured cost.
And that wasn't really, he did not do a good job of making that clear.
Right. I still felt like, okay, we still need to know
but I think,
what it is.
I think the 9 of you need assurance that it's not a cost to the district.
No, it's a loan. I understand that.
But that's huge, because you've got to sit with the public now and justify to them, why are you loaning someone?
It's the school district's job to loan a private organization.
Right.
That could be a question.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's good. That if you really do want to do a public, more of an announcement of what we're planning on doing, I think some of their concern is most families that I know are struggling through this financial time. They don't have money to loan people.
Right.
And it's not really just a loan, it's an investment into our kids' future.
And I think you have to say that.
But you have to bring that to their attention that we're really not just loaning, we're going to get this back. It's not,
all you have to do is tell people to look at the budget over the last 2 years and the bloodbath that we've been through and cutting program and cutting different things. We're now on the verge of potentially cutting foreign language out of
banned even.
Well, I don't know what's going to happen with that, but I think foreign language is, if I'm reading the tea leaves properly, is probably going to happen. And what wouldn't it be nice for a foundation in 3 or 4 years to be able to say, you know what, we've raised enough money to hire tutors for kids to do an after-school language program or an elementary language program.
I think it would be good when talking with the public and when talking with the board, have a success story or two of what these foundations did in other districts over 2 years, over 5 years. And the difference that they are making in those communities, and why we should have that here. I think that could be helpful.
Right, and they might not even know this community foundation exists on our website.
No, there are a lot of people that don't even know about it. You take it for granted because you're on the board and you hear everything, but most people don't pay attention to what goes on at school until they want to, and they have a reason to.
Well, it's kind of hard to find under parents.
Well,
that doesn't stick out on me.
And you know what? I think once it's up and running,
the other schools had it right on the first page.
Once it's up and running, and you have a foundation that is people. The only people that are going to be interested in it are those that are running it. But you just have to get that dedicated core of people that's going to be their focus. Some people really love giving back to the district, and you'll get a lot of volunteers who you won't even have to pay. The only people on that board that you should pay is the executive director. The rest of these people are volunteers.
Right.
The president should be a volunteer. Obviously you and I we're volunteers. Although the district pays me my salary, I'm going to volunteer. You're technically allowing me to volunteer my time to the foundation. That's technically what the board's letting me do. The board member that sits on the board is volunteering extra time. Those other officers that they have are volunteering time. Usually the solicitor that a foundation has volunteers their services. So it's all about the process and the kickstart that this foundation needs. And I think this is like one of those, it's like a little fire that just needs a match on it, and it'll go like that, and it'll burn hot for a long time. I think they're just people that want to give. I don't think you'll get a lot. I don't think we'll be $1 million foundation like Altoona, but wouldn't it be nice to have a working capital of?
There's at least 2 businesses here in town that would, or possibly 3 if you include Mr. Miller, that would have been waiting or have made, I should say, gestures that they'd be willing to donate under the right circumstances.
Oh, I think you'll get Mascaro to donate to us.
That's one. Haynes and Kibble House.
Haynes and Kibble House will give.
So
I mean, we already talked about all that when we were back. When they were trying to raise money for the Stadium Foundation, they had developed a list of all these potential businesses that they thought would be willing to donate, and it just fizzled because they did not have a good plan.
Maybe we should put some of these business owners on the board. I don't know.
Well, you would just, however the executive director decides to do that, that's their job.
Well, I think we're jumping ahead. Let's just get to Bob New, find out what he's truly going to charge us so that we can take it back to the entire board and figure out what their tolerance is to this.
Right, to the level of funding, level of loan.
Because when Mr. New was here,
we don't need to bring him back to the full board. I don't think that's going to be productive.
No, I think we just need to have the true figures of what the loan is going to consist of and exactly what that will give us. And he's willing to talk to Joe Peterson.
Well, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to put down here, first of all, to contact him for further direction on how to structure the loan, what the process would be, to resurrect the board of directors for the foundation, because that answers the leadership question. I'll just say, what would the process be to resurrect the foundation board of directors? And what is the timeline?
Because I know July 1st, that was something with the tax.
Yeah, I think the EITC we might have to just bite the bullet for a year. I don't know.
Right.
Time is, I don't want to let that get in the way. I mean, I wouldn't. What other questions did you have? Connor, you had one?
Oh, what was it?
I have so far, contact Bob New for further direction on how to structure the loan, what the process would be to resurrect the board and the foundation board, and the timeline for doing that.
Well, I had the question.
About the loan?
Yeah, when we would be giving the loan. Of course, we think it should be after. We have to make sure that's okay with him.
Right.
Hiring his services. And then after he gets the new board in place or gets a new executive director, then giving him the loan, making sure that would work.
All right, so timing of the loan.
Yeah.
What we need to know is what will be the cost that will be on the agenda for the board to approve for this project. That's really the big item we need to figure out.
Right. I'd just like to know how he goes about advertising for the executive director.
Because I know
that's the key person in the whole thing.
Yeah.
Finding the right person.
Oh, well, he said Craigslist. That was on the, that really is.
You laugh though, people use Craigslist.
No, that's how he said he found some.
Well, I have 2 people that approached me asking me about it.
They want to be the executive director?
Yeah.
They'd like that informal.
They'd like more information.
He did say also when he comes to finding the board members,
he said,
we all know
you all look.
And it's funny because the person who is interested in it meets exactly the criteria that he rolled out in his presentation.
Well, then he should, or she, he or she.
It's a she.
They should.
He always said, didn't he say, it's more she's than he's?
Yes. It's a she, motivated, very organized, and she doesn't work, but she would like to.
One of these people, that do this well, they'll get you so much money, our head will be spinning.
Well, you should probably.
Well, that's why I wanted to know how.
Well, no, we need to get a structure in place. You can't just drop somebody.
No. I was just saying.
Right.
Keep her name in the back of your head, and.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right.
And there's another woman that does it here in town too. That was on the borough council board, and she did a lot of this, and she inquired about it.
There's a lot of people that really care about what goes on in Birdsboro, Amity, Union, and in the Daniel Boone School District, and I still think they're just not going to come with this present structure. It's not going to happen. That's been very clear.
Nothing's happening. It's
Right.
time to change.
Yep. I've been saying that for over a year now. I have an individual not very happy with me right now because of my comments, but so be it. It'll be the first.
So advertising for executive.
I have to go upstairs.
Okay.
All right.
Do you want to let me know
Thank you.
what the next meeting date is?
Yeah, well, we wanted to
It'll
talk
be-
about that while you're here. I think in light of the length of some of these meetings, that we should probably split these two meetings apart. I think it was a good idea to get it started because of all the this is my recommendation looking at the calendar because it'll address the concern that you had about I first of all don't think going to two of these policy meetings a month, people have a hard enough time getting here for our regular meetings, so just be aware of their time, not so much my time, more your time. But I would recommend putting the policy committee at the last Wednesday of the month. Not this month, though, because the parents want to have this big meeting about the diversity issue.
Well, we're planning on doing that tonight.
No, but I meant going forward, then in April, if you want to still, meet one more time, two on one night, but then start to branch off, then the last
In
Wednesday
May.
in April, the last Wednesday.
But it looks like if we stay with our current plan, it'll be Wednesday, the April 11th.
Right.
And if we stay with the current way, we'd meet for the last time at 6 for that meeting.
Right.
And then in May, we'll
Then
change
you
the
could stay
time.
on this Wednesday.
Yeah, I'm
Change it
gonna
to
stay on
7.
this
I
Wednesday.
can do next month is fine on me.
The what, 11th? Okay.
All right.
But then I would say, Connor,
Thank you.
after the
I might
11th,
not be able to be here, but you're going.
on the policy committee meeting on the 11th, we could hold that one and then
And then go.
to have two that month
Yeah.
to start the process of having it April 25th.
All right.
Although I will probably be out of town that night, but I don't always need to be here for these, especially if Mrs. Trainer's going to be here.
Okay.
So, and she's committed to be part of this because she always has worked with policy. That's just a
That
tentative
sounds
plan.
fine.
If that works for you, we can
So
kind
what
of make
we
that
would
public.
do next month, we're going to have we're going to do the same thing.
Do the
we
same
did
thing we're
tonight
doing this month.
on the 11th, and then on the 25th, we'll start having policy review committee meetings on the 3rd, on the 4th. That will be the 4th.
Right, and then you will not have one on May.
the second Wednesday of May.
She will have her meeting the
Okay.
9th, but then we'll skip down to the 23rd.
All right, that should be fine.
And then we'll just, June, again, we'll meet. July, we usually take off. And then we'll come back in August and keep that rolling forward that way. That makes sense to me.
All right.
I think that will allow us then to be prepared. Whatever we do at the end of the month always will precede the next committee of the whole. That'll give us time for you to have looked at them as a committee, and then we'll put them on the Subers can look at them, and we won't run into this calendar thing that we ran into this time.
Very good.
So I don't know what other further discussion you want to have on.
Is there anything else that you had
I
on?
don't have anything right now.
Okay. And the meeting is adjourned at
It is 6:50.
6:50.
No one in attendance from the public.